Most of us think that to improve our lives, we have to add more habits, more goals, more hustle. But what if the real path to growth isn't about addition at all? What if it's actually about subtraction? What if there are things in your life, right now, quietly draining your energy and shaping who you are, and you don't even realize it? That's the powerful idea we're going to unpack.
Yeah, we're all taught that building a better life means just piling more on top. But the real truth, the one that can completely flip your mindset, is that genuine growth really begins when we start removing things. The noise, the energy drains, the mental clutter. It's a paradox for sure, but a really powerful one. So, here's our game plan. We'll start with this idea of the growth paradox itself. Then we'll dive into 3 key areas where we can start subtracting: the external noise from other people, the things that hijack our focus, and finally, the internal stories we tell ourselves. And at the end, we'll see what it looks like to have a mind that's finally been unhijacked, once you've cleared all that noise out. So let's dig into that core concept, the growth paradox. Look, the things we're about to talk about aren't just bad habits. Think of them as silent drains. They're running in the background, consuming your mental and emotional resources, and literally rewiring your brain's pathways. And if you don't actively remove them, they can actually become your personality.
Okay, let's get into our first category of removals. This one is all about how you interact with the world, and more specifically, with how other people see you. This is about taking back your social and emotional energy.
So, the first 3 things to quietly eliminate are these huge drains on your social energy. First up, that constant, nagging need to be understood. Second, feeling guilty because you're evolving and maybe outgrowing people in your life. And third, that compulsive habit we all have of over-explaining our choices and our actions.
That need to be understood, it actually has a name in psychology: social validation dependency. And it's framed here as a craving because that's exactly what it is. It's like an addiction to getting that nod of approval from everyone. The moment you accept that most people won't fully get you, and that that's totally okay, you free your mind from this constant, exhausting negotiation. And this is the payoff. When you stop over-explaining everything and chasing validation, your silence suddenly has weight. It signals self-assurance. It shows you don't need everyone else to agree with you to be sure about your path. Letting go isn't weakness. It's this source of incredible strength that frees you from the guilt of having to justify your own growth to others.
All right, let's move on to the next section and see how this all connects. We're now turning inward, moving from how we deal with others to what we actually allow into our own minds. This whole part is about reclaiming your most valuable asset, your focus.
Here are the next 3 removals. And I gotta tell you, these are assassins of deep thinking. First, that endless, uncontrolled stream of digital input from our phones and devices. Second, pouring your precious energy into conversations that go absolutely nowhere. And third, and this one's subtle, the fear of being seen as boring, which makes us perform instead of just connect.
Just think of your attention like a daily budget. Infinite scrolling, constant notifications, shallow small talk, they eat up a huge chunk of it, leaving just this tiny sliver for actual deep focus. And what's worse, all that constant stimulation actually reduces your dopamine sensitivity, which is why normal offline life can start to feel, kind of dull.
And what about those conversations that just leave you feeling drained? There's a term for that: conversational narcissism. This is when you're talking to someone, but you can feel that they're just waiting for their turn to speak. They aren't listening to understand you, they're just listening to reply. Removing yourself from these interactions is a powerful way to protect your energy. Now, this one might sound a little backward, but it is such a powerful shift. That fear of being boring, it leads to what's called impression management, where you're constantly adjusting yourself to be liked. When you stop performing, you just become authentic. And it's that authenticity that truly attracts genuine connection and a real sense of inner peace. All right, now for our final and maybe the most important category of removals. We've dealt with the external world and our focus. Now we're going even deeper into the internal narratives, the stories that you tell yourself every single day.
Here are the final 3 things to eliminate. First, that desperate need for closure on things that are already over. Second, that harsh inner critic that you've mistaken for a motivator. And third, that silent, destructive urge to constantly prove your worth, not just to others, but to yourself.
So why do we crave closure so badly? It's all about reducing something called cognitive dissonance, that really uncomfortable mental static you get from unanswered questions. We think if we can just find the why, we'll get peace.
But the key insight here is that true mental strength is developing the ability to live with that ambiguity, to accept that some things will just never make perfect sense.
This is such a simple but profound shift. Self-criticism isn't motivation. It's a neurological roadblock. It floods your brain with the stress hormone cortisol and literally blocks its ability to learn. So shifting from "I'm not enough" to "I'm learning" isn't just playing with words. It actively rewires your subconscious reward system to value growth over perfection.
And this brings us to the most crucial point of this whole section. Your value is inherent. That urge to prove your worth, it often comes from a childhood where maybe love and acceptance were tied to achievement. Real peace comes when you finally, truly internalize that you deserve to exist, to rest, and just to be, even if no one is clapping for you. Okay, so what actually happens when you start removing these 9 things? Your brain goes through this fascinating rebalancing process. And this isn't just about feeling better, it's about fundamentally changing how your mind operates.
This whole transformation tends to happen in stages. First up is resistance. Your brain is so used to the chaos that it actually mistakes that familiar pain for safety, so it fights back a bit. But then, as you stick with it, you enter rebalancing. The noise finally starts to fade, and actual cognitive space opens up. From there, you achieve clarity. Your brain's reward system literally starts to prefer calm over chaos. And finally, you get to ownership. You are no longer just reacting, you are thinking. Your mind, for the first time, is truly yours.
And this is what that rebalanced state feels like in your day-to-day life. Your decisions become sharper, cleaner, because they're based on reality, not on knee-jerk reactions. Your silence becomes a tool for thought, not just an awkward void you have to fill. And being alone, solitude, it transforms from a punishment into this valuable, peaceful state.
So we end with this question for you. You don't need some grand announcement or a dramatic life overhaul. Real change often starts silently. After everything we've just covered, what is the one piece of noise, whether it's external or internal, that you will quietly choose to eliminate from your life starting today?